At 6:42 on the morning of October 19th, a park ranger found a camera lying in the middle of an abandoned forest trail. The footage inside showed its owner running for his life, while something tall and inhuman followed him through the trees.
Daniel!
It knows my name.
Seconds later, the creature was suddenly directly behind him. The camera hit the forest floor, and Daniel Mercer disappeared. There was no blood, no damaged equipment, no sign of a struggle, only Daniel's camera, still recording, with its owner nowhere in sight. 3 days later, another camera appeared on the same trail, then another, and over the next 11 months, the pattern would repeat again and again. 7 people eventually vanished inside Black Pine Forest. None of their bodies were recovered, but every one of their cameras came back. Bellwether itself is quiet, isolated, and ordinary. The kind of town where everyone notices when something unusual happens. Long before anyone disappeared, local families warned their children never to enter Hollow Creek after sunset. They said familiar voices sometimes came from the trees, even voices belonging to the dead. Most people treated those stories as folklore. That changed when 28-year-old wildlife photographer Daniel Mercer arrived at the forest. Daniel had driven nearly 4 hours, hoping to photograph elk during the autumn migration. He was experienced outdoors and accustomed to hiking alone. At 6:30 that morning, Daniel sent his sister one final message. Signal is weak, going deeper, should be back before dark. He never came back. When Daniel failed to return that evening, his sister contacted authorities. Search teams entered the forest before midnight. Search dogs followed Daniel's scent for almost 5 miles. Then all 4 dogs suddenly refused to continue. Some whined. One pulled violently backward. Another stared into the trees and growled. 50 yards farther ahead, searchers found Daniel's backpack. His wallet was still inside. His food was untouched, but his phone and camera were gone. For 6 days, volunteers, helicopters, and thermal equipment searched Black Pine Forest. Nothing belonging to Daniel was found beyond that point. The following morning, Ranger Thomas Reed returned to Hollow Creek Trail and found Daniel's camera sitting upright in the middle of the path. Investigators examined the memory card. At first, everything looked normal. Trees, animal tracks, fog hanging between the pines. Then, at 3:17 in the afternoon, a tall figure appeared almost 100 feet ahead of Daniel. 20 seconds later, Daniel took another photograph. The surrounding trees had barely changed, but the figure was suddenly much closer. In the next image, it stood less than 30 feet away. Its pale face, tilted head, long black coat, and empty-looking eyes were now clearly visible. Daniel switched from photographs to video. The figure had disappeared.
Hello?
Daniel.
Who's there?
Daniel. Daniel.
Sarah?
Daniel. Come here.
It knows my name.
Police never publicly released the full recording, but details leaked through Bellwether, and stories about something living near Hollow Creek began spreading. 2 months later, 19-year-old Emma Carlisle entered Black Pine Forest with 2 college friends. Emma noticed an abandoned wooden bridge farther down Hollow Creek Trail and walked ahead alone to photograph it. When she failed to return, her friends followed her footprints through the fresh snow. The tracks continued normally, then simply stopped. The next morning, Emma's camera was found hanging from a tree branch nearly 8 feet above the ground. There were no footprints beneath it. Its final photographs showed Emma from several feet away. She wasn't holding the camera. Someone or something was photographing her. In one image, Daniel Mercer stood behind Emma. He wore the same clothes he had disappeared in, but his skin was pale and his eyes were completely black. The final photograph was worse. Daniel's mouth stretched unnaturally wide, and behind him stood the original tall figure. After Emma disappeared, authorities closed Hollow Creek Trail and installed barricades across its entrances. Online, people began calling the creature the Hollow Creek Man. Others called it the Mimic. The theory was that it copied the people it took. Months later, paranormal investigators Marcus Hale, Kevin Rowe, and Nathan Briggs entered the closed forest after midnight.
Someone keeps walking beside us. There. There's a girl.
Marcus.
Hello?
Help me.
Don't. She needs...
Marcus disappeared behind the trees. Kevin and Nathan lost sight of him for less than 20 seconds. When they reached the same location, Marcus was gone. His camera was sitting upright on the forest floor. The footage showed Marcus running deeper into the trees.
Wait! Wait! Emma?
The figure slowly turned. Emma's skin was gray, her eyes black, and her smile stretched unnaturally wide. Behind her stood Daniel, and behind Daniel stood the mimic. Then Emma opened her mouth.
Come closer.
But the voice coming from her mouth was Marcus's own. The camera fell. Marcus screamed once. The recording continued for another 43 minutes, but nothing else was heard. Marcus Hale was never found. Over the following months, 3 more people disappeared around Hollow Creek Trail. Different ages, different backgrounds, no obvious connection, but the pattern never changed. Someone heard a familiar voice. They became separated. They vanished, and within 24 hours, their camera returned. The 7th disappearance was different. The victim was Ranger Thomas Reed, the same man who had originally found Daniel Mercer's camera. On September 3rd, Thomas entered the closed trail to inspect damaged barricades. At 4:06 p.m., he radioed dispatch.
I found something. Another trail. Oh, God. They're standing there. Who? All of them.
Thomas entered the hidden trail and followed the 6 figures deeper into the forest. There were no birds, no insects, no wind, only his breathing. After nearly 2 minutes, the path opened into a clearing that shouldn't have existed. At its center stood a decaying wooden cabin. Thomas approached the structure slowly.
That wasn't here before.
Inside, 6 missing cameras were arranged in a circle on the wooden floor, and beside them was one empty space, a 7th position. Thomas began backing away. Then someone whispered directly behind him.
Thomas. Thomas.
What are you? You called us.
The footage ended moments later. Thomas's GPS stopped transmitting at 4:09 p.m. The next morning, his body camera appeared on the hood of his patrol vehicle. Thomas was gone. Search teams returned to the exact location shown in Thomas's footage. There was no second trail, no clearing, no cabin, nothing. Investigators eventually searched Bellwether's historical archives for anything connected to Hollow Creek. What they discovered dated back more than a century. Before Black Pine Forest became protected land, a logging settlement operated in the same area. In 1911, 7 workers disappeared there. Search parties found their equipment arranged neatly along the old logging road. Axes, lanterns, coats, boots, but no bodies. One surviving worker claimed the missing men had begun hearing familiar voices in the forest. Then one worker reported seeing his deceased brother standing between the trees. He followed him and disappeared. The survivor later wrote a final warning.
It does not haunt the forest. It learns the people who enter it. First your name, then your face. And when it can become you, you belong to it.
Decades later, Hollow Creek Trail was built almost directly over the same route as that abandoned logging road. Today, the entire southern section of Black Pine Forest remains closed. The barricades are inspected every morning, but rangers still occasionally find footprints beyond them. The tracks always lead deeper into the forest, never back out. One camera recovered last November contained a 12-second recording. Inside a dark wooden cabin stood Daniel, Emma, Marcus, the 3 later victims, and Ranger Thomas Reed. All 7 stared directly into the lens. For 11 seconds, nobody moved. Then Thomas raised one finger to his lips. Behind them, the mimic stepped into view. This time, it had a new face. The face belonged to the ranger who found the camera that morning. That ranger was still alive, but 3 nights later, he called the sheriff and reported someone standing outside his bedroom window. Police asked him to describe the person. After a long silence, he answered,
It looks exactly like me.
Police arrived 9 minutes later. The ranger was gone. His bedroom was locked from the inside. There were no footprints beneath the window. Only one camera remained on his bed. It was still recording. And from somewhere inside the dark room, a familiar voice whispered,
Now there are 8.